so glad. I usually can't ever hear the speakers in the live meetings, of course, since I'm in Indianapolis. And I was so excited when Jeff Johannigman was today's speaker, so I get to hear him. He's a longtime friend. He is the owner of a company called People Type Consulting. His topic today is turning work into play. He is as I said, the founder and principal consultant of People Type Consulting, which is an Austin-based training, consulting, and career development firm specializing in the applications of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Through his career, he has coached hundreds of people to find greater career success and fulfillment. He has established one of the country's first alumni career service programs for the University of Texas. He has worked as a programmer, designer, and producer in the computer game industry with over 20 published computer games. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from Cornell University and a Master of Arts in Human Services from St. Edward's University. Let's give a very warm welcome, and you can start laughing now, for Jeff Johannigman.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am so delighted to be here. Although, to be honest, I was hoping to get to see everybody in person for this. And having worked at ACC, I miss the fact that I used to get spring break totally off. And then realized when we scheduled this, we went, oh, wait, no, we're not going to meet at ACC this week. We're going to have to do this on Zoom. But I did get a chance to see a whole lot of people that I wouldn't have gotten to see if we were at ACC, number one of which is Kathy. Kathy and I have known each other for over 25 years now.
Mhm.
So I've got started doing outplacement work in 2001. And that was about what was the impetus for you to start Launchpad back then was the tech bubble bursting 2001, if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
Kathy? Yep.
Yep,
Yep. So,
yep. .com
yeah,
bust.
.com bust. Oh, those were fun days. I'm so glad we're not repeating them. But I was actually one of the people busted. I was working for a software company, division of IBM at the time, and was put in charge of layoffs we were doing, and got to then decide to switch to working for the outplacement firm we were working for, and then do some presentations work with Kathy. So other part of my background, let me bring up the slides I've got. Let's see if it's set this for sharing. Sharing is not turned on. You can request sharing for this
I
meeting.
am doing it right now.
Okay. Is that working now? Okay, let's give that another try. Host tools. Reset that. Okay. And I'm not seeing where oh, there it is. There's our share button. So I got it now, and content only share.
Here we go.
There we go. Can you see my screen now?
We can see you, we can hear you.
You can see me and you can hear me. That's wonderful. Okay, so I'm gonna switch this over to here and shrink this on down so I can see it as well at the time. All right, so today's topic, let me share this idea, is turning work into play. And it relies a little bit on my background of how I started my career and how I ended up changing my career throughout. And that is because my career started in the computer game industry way back in the early 1980s. Yeah, I hate to admit how old that is. But you can look at that. That was a computer that originally had 16K of memory, and I didn't even have that disk drive when I started. My very first game I wrote was published on a cassette tape. So there may be a few others who remember the days of technology of home computers with cassette tapes, and all the rest of you going, "Oh my God, what cassette tapes? What were those?" But during those years, I worked for many different companies, Epix, Atari, Dynamics, Electronic Arts, and so on. Oops, let me move the, there we go. Broderbund, TKO, and so on. Of all those companies, as best I know, there's only one of them that's still in business today, and that's EA. But the game industry has a very, very harsh reputation for companies that have the lifespan of a mayfly. So one of the, I say, advantages of that experience is that I learned how to do an effective job search. My first 2 years out of college, I was laid off 3 different times. So, as a 23-year-old kid fresh out of college, I got very good at rewriting a resume and going out and hustling and networking and all the important things that you needed to learn how to do. A few of the games that I worked on back in then, think for computers like the Commodore 64. This was a game called Demon Stalkers. Savage Empire for the IBM PC, which was a spin-off of the Ultima games, and a game called Master of Orion, which is one some people still remember from way back when. They actually remade Master of Orion several years ago, and I got to be a consultant on it. And one of the things that they did when they remade it was they brought in voice actors like Mark Hamill and Alan Tudyk and Michael Dorn and all of these people who are science fiction legends. And I'm going, oh my God, Mark Hamill's doing a voice in one of my games. This is so amazing. So that was an amazing moment to have. But ultimately, I decided to leave the game business. And one of the reasons I decided to leave the game business was because of that game, Master of Orion. One of the reviews, and was there in the ad itself, said this product will offer enough late nights and missed appointments to make it a definite Game of the Year candidate, as well as Exhibit A in many divorce cases. Kind of makes you think, you know, what am I doing for people's lives? Because as a game designer, the highest praise we often got from our customers were people going, dude, do you know how many hours I wasted on your game? I was up all night. I called in sick the next day at work. My old lady's ready to throw me out. I'm about to lose my job. It's an awesome game. Great. So glad I could do that for you. So I really wanted to ask myself this question of, is my life all about creating high-tech addiction for people? Is that all I'm doing? So I went through a career exploration process and ended up changing my career. And in that process, I was asking myself the question, can I use all of this knowledge about how to make a game and how to make a game addictive and how to make a game motivating? Can that be used for good instead of for just wasting time, as my customers were happy to say? So the answer to that question came from my cat. No, my cat does not talk, but I noticed when my cat was playing with a toy mouse. And I asked myself, scratch my head, what is this cat doing? Is this cat playing, learning, working, or all of the above? Which do you think it is? And if you want to just go ahead and type in the chat what you think it is. And suddenly I can't see the chat right now. Oh, there we go. Let me hit that chat button. Yep. D, and D. Yep, that's it. D, all of the above on there. So ultimately, cogito ergo ludo. That's the Latin, sort of. We put on the t-shirts at a game developers conference that said, I think, therefore I play. Every species on the planet, besides us, does not make any distinction whatsoever between working and learning and playing. It's just all one and the same. We are the ones that are stupid enough to say, oh, work is work and play is play. And, you can't mix them up and so on. So now, when I talk about play, this is not what I mean. I know there's a lot of companies that do the like foosball tables at work, and you can take breaks, and they have fun stuff, and they say on their website, "We work hard and play hard." That's not what I'm talking about, really. I'm talking about really understanding how to get enjoyment out of your work by identifying the things that really motivate you. And so we start with defining what is play. I've worked in academia. We have to start with proper definitions. So I looked into somebody who's actually done research on how animals play and why animals play. There's a wonderful book written by an animal play researcher, figured out what animals are doing when they are playing. And in short, his definition was, in a world continuously presenting unique challenges and ambiguity, play prepares the bears, the bears he was researching, play prepares the bears for an evolving planet. In other words, what he was basically saying is it's a survival mechanism. It is how animals learn how to survive in a changing environment. Play is apparently purposeless. Play is something we do voluntarily. Play is something we find inherently attractive. We lose track of time in the process. We have a diminished awareness of self, and we tend to improvise a lot. And we thought about, well, if that's play, what is the opposite of play? What do you think? Type it in the chat. What would you say is the opposite of play? What's the obvious answer that people think? Work. Play, work. Opposite ideas, right? Imprisonment, purpose. Oh, now we're getting to interesting. Imprisonment. That's a little scary. But his definition for the opposite of play is depression. Depression. And that was kind of scary. People, if you don't have enough play in your life, then it's depression. So, and I thought about, does being playful make you better at work? Does it give you a competitive advantage in the workplace? And when I was getting started in the game industry, these were a couple of the leaders in the computer industry at the time. One was the president of IBM, the other was the president of Apple. Who do you think was more playful? Who was more playful? Marina, you said IBM? I'm surprised at that, but I worked at IBM. But Steve Jobs, yeah, he was a jerk. I will say I know that he could be a jerk at times, but he also had a sense of play about him. So let me ask this question though. Where will you find people who are really good at being creative problem solvers? Which of these two environments? The one on the left, the one on the right? I'd much rather work in the one on the left, which actually is a shot from inside of Google somewhere. So just trying to introduce a little bit of playfulness into the environment is a good starting point. But it goes further than that. We're going to go back to 1995. I wish I had a time machine and I could make the right decisions about what companies to invest in 30, 40 years ago and be much richer then. I did once upon a time have early stock in Electronic Arts, which I sold off in the IPO. And if I'd only kept it for another year or two, I'd be very retired by this point. So we're going to create the dawn of the internet era. We're going to create an online encyclopedia. And there's one company, big, huge Fortune 100 technology company, has a huge staff of well-paid writers and editors and project managers and millions of dollars to spend on marketing and sales. And then there's somebody else who has an idea that says, we're just going to do something kind of grassroots. It's going to really require tens of thousands of people to just volunteer for no pay. And we're not going to do a whole lot of centralized management. We're not going to do a whole lot of control. And we're not even going to charge anybody for it. We're just going to make it freely available. Which do you think was going to be more successful? The one on the left, the one on the right? With 2020 hindsight, Jeff says it's the one on the right. And Alexander knows what the one on the right is. Anybody know what the one on the left was? This is stretching our technology knowledge. Encarta. There we go. Somebody vaguely remembers Encarta. This was Microsoft's attempt at an online encyclopedia, and it failed utterly in spite of their professional project management and marketing. And obviously, the other one is Wikipedia. Wikipedia. Totally free, totally volunteer. Why would tens of thousands of people put in work because it takes work to write good Wikipedia articles, but why would tens of thousands of people do it for no pay? Because it's play, it's fun. So let's talk about what is fun. How do we define fun? And there is indeed a book called A Theory of Fun for Game Design, written by an acquaintance of mine, Rolf Koster, who I knew in the game industry. And Rolf basically defined it as fun arises out of mastery. It arises out of comprehension. It's the act of solving puzzles that makes games fun. In other words, with games, learning is the drug. Games are, in the end, teachers. Fun is just another word for learning. I thought that was fascinating. And I particularly applied this as well when I was working at ACC and working with faculty development to figure out how to help them put fun into their classes as well. And then I also wanted to define the term of what is a game. Greg Kostikian came up with a definition, which sounds very academic and very stuffy. A game is a form of art in which participants, termed players, make decisions in order to manage resources through game tokens in the pursuit of a goal. Well, that's very articulate and pompous, but there's a few interesting parts of that definition. Another definition is one or more causally linked series of challenges in a simulated environment. That's kind of interesting. My favorite definition comes from a gentleman I got to work with years ago named Sid Meier, who created a game called Civilization, among several other big, huge hit games. And Sid basically boiled it down to it's a series of interesting choices. A series of interesting choices. And that's ultimately, as a game designer, what I started to really just focus on was how do I give players interesting choices? But if we dissect this, the parts of this, the components of this into some key portions, it's the making decisions, it's having a goal, it's having challenges to overcome, and making those decisions into interesting choices that really make a game a game. You with me so far? Because here comes the interesting revelation I had when I was doing research for this presentation, is I wanted to figure out what are the things that motivate people at work. If we know that what makes a game motivating are those abilities to make decisions, have goals, have challenges, I looked into a book called Drive. Drive was written by Daniel Pink. It's one of the most amazing books to read that I've read in the last several decades. And it is subtitled The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, because he did his research. He looked up all of the studies on work motivation. And to summarize the major points of the book, first of which, everything we thought we knew about carrots and sticks is wrong. Extrinsic motivators, offering people money, threatening them with punishment, whatever. They worked fine when we were doing rote tasks, working on an assembly line, and didn't need to use our brains at all. That was fine. Now, doing creative tasks, a small reward can maybe give people a little extra oomph of motivation, but bigger rewards actually put on too much pressure that inhibits creativity. So a big reward, if people are focused on winning a big reward, they become less creative, they become more cautious, and they dampen down their risk-taking and creativity. Especially if you put it out on an if-then basis. If you come up with something new and innovative by this date with this deadline, then we'll give you this bonus. That often supplants the actual intrinsic motivation. And what money is really most effective for is just pay people enough so they don't worry about the money. Pay people enough so other things can take priority. But offering a lot more money doesn't really motivate people as much as some of the things that Pink did find motivate people. So what motivates people? This is probably the most important slide of the whole thing right here. What Pink discovered, three things, three key factors in your work that motivates people for work: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And thank you, Melissa. I'm glad some other people have read Drive as well. It is just a wonderful book. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is that independent decision making, the ability to to be in charge of what you're doing. Mastery is having a skill and having challenges and overcoming them. And purpose is what's the reason, what's the difference this is going to make. And I compared that to what we just looked at about games. Games are all about decision making, challenges, and goals. And I looked at those two lists and it's the same thing. It's the same three things, slightly different words, but autonomy is about independent decision making. Mastery is about being able to overcome challenges and getting better. And purpose and goals, basically the same concept. So I realized this makes work more fun if you pay attention to these three factors. So we're going to design a game called work. And having worked in the field of psychology for many years, I have great reverence for the thoughts and wisdom of Carl Jung, who said that one of the most difficult tasks people can perform, however much others may despise it, is the invention of good games. We never got respect as game designers. Anyway, so let's start with important goals and thinking about important work goals. I go back to a tale. I don't know exactly where the tale comes from, but it's the tale of the stonecutters. And the story goes, gentleman is walking down the path to a village, and he's walking past a quarry, and he sees somebody doing some stone cutting. And he stops the first person and asks him, "Sir, what are you doing?" And the guy grumbles a bit, and he says, "Well, can't you see I'm cutting stones? We need to cut these stones for buildings to be done. It's hot, it's sweaty out here, it's terrible work, but I got to feed my family." So the guy says, "Okay, thank you for giving me an answer." And he continues walking down the road, sees somebody else apparently doing the same thing. He says, "Sir, what are you doing?" He said, "Me, I am one of the finest stone cutters in the entire area. Do you see how smooth this surface is and how sharp the corners are and how all of these stones are going to fit perfectly with each other?" And he goes, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. Hmm. Thank you for sharing that." And he continues walking down the road, and he comes across a third person apparently doing the same thing, cutting stones. He says, "Sir, what is it that you're doing?" And the guy says, "Me? Oh, I have the most wonderful job in the world. I am going to be building a great temple for our village. And that's a place where all of our people can come together and worship, and it be the centerpiece of our whole community where people will meet each other and form relationships and bond together in great service." And I went, "Oh, okay, well, thank you very much." So let me ask the question then, after he talked to all three of these people, which one do you think really found the most joy and fulfillment out of his work? One, two, or three? First person, second person, or third person that he met? So to me, it clearly feels like the third person, because even though they were physically doing the same work, he was the one who could connect it to a sense of mission and a sense of purpose and a sense of how this is going to make a difference in people's lives. So as a career coach, and I've spent many years as a career coach, didn't have a whole lot of people come to see me because they just wanted to make more money. What they came to me to get help with was feeling like, I don't have any sense of purpose. I don't have any sense of meaning in my life. Can you help me figure out how to recapture that passion? And that means you want to find an organization that has a sense of mission that you can believe in, a sense of mission you can connect to about who you serve and how you make their lives better. And hopefully that organization will keep a good focus on how we as an organization are serving that mission and not just say, well, we made this much in profits this quarter, and then be able to connect every employee's mission in their job to the bigger mission of the organization. Personally, right now, I do, as I was introduced, I run a company of my own, a little home business called People Type Consulting, but I have a day job working for a company called Foundation Communities, which is a nonprofit that manages over 30 different affordable properties that people can rent if they have very low incomes. And we brought thousands of people out of homelessness. We have 10,000 residents in our properties now. And damn, We all know how expensive it is to live in Austin, and we've got a solution on that, and we're working on how making that affordable for more people. I can buy into that. I can find purpose in that myself. So I'm going to add it. I added into all to my slides today questions for you to use when you are evaluating a job or when you're more specifically interviewing for a job, when they get around to asking, so what questions do you have for us? And the first one I would be asking in an interview is, what's your company's mission and how does this job serve that mission? What's your company's mission and how does this job serve that mission? Because if you can't get your heart into that mission, if you can't say, oh, this is a good mission, this is something I can believe in, this is something I can work toward, you don't want to work there. Second part, after purpose, is that autonomy, the independent decision-making part. And companies have been experimenting more and more over the years with providing people with more autonomy, starting with simple things like vacation days. Netflix was one of the first companies to do unlimited time off, unlimited vacation, just treating their employees as responsible adults and saying, if you're getting your job done and you're meeting your project goals and deadlines and everything else, and you need to take time off, take time off. We're not going to monitor. We don't care. Google is famous for its 20% time. They let employees allocate 20% of their time to any project that they consider connected to and serving the general mission of Google. But they come up with the ideas themselves and they can organize their friends and other colleagues to help participate in those projects. And that's where we got Gmail, was an employee-initiated project using their 20% time, among several other innovations. Best Buy, in their headquarters, not in their stores, but in their headquarters, did a results-only work environment. You show up to the office when you feel like it. We're not going to worry about time, clocking in, clocking out, anything like that, as long as you get the results that you agreed to with your manager and you meet your goals in doing so. So my question then, or my question now that ties to this is, the pandemic gave us many, many, many more options for working from home, from hybrid schedules. And obviously, working from home gives you a lot more autonomy over what you're working on, when you're working on it, and so on, which a lot of people really, really love. It drove me crazy when I was working entirely from home because I didn't have the kind of workplace relationships that I craved. Now I'm getting to occasional work from home and mostly working from the office. I get to really see a lot of the people I work with on a daily basis, but I also have a lot of flexibility and control of my time. So ask yourself and explore in whatever jobs you're looking at. How much autonomy would you have in defining what the tasks you work on, how you do them, when you do them, where you do them, with whom you do them? And perhaps during the interview, ask specifically, how much autonomy would I have to manage my own projects, my own time? How much control do I have? Or am I in a role where somebody's always going to be looking over my shoulder? That will kill my motivation, I'll tell you that. Next part, turning it into play. Who here has ever played Dungeons and Dragons? I played it way back when in the mid 70s when it first came out in the early days. And one of the things I found that made D&D fun was the fact that when you were playing with your friends, you each got to take on uniquely different, but nonetheless all heroic roles. In the original game, there were basically four types of characters you could play. You could be a fighter, a thief, a wizard, or a cleric. And you could rest assured that during any evening's game session, there'd be points in the game where you got to be the one that stepped forward and did the thing that everybody needed you to do. And you got to be the hero for that moment. If I was the fighter, I was the one that stepped forward and confronted the monster and pulled out my sword and whacked at him with my sword until he was gone. If my character was a thief, he was the one that was sneaking ahead, scouting in the darkness, finding the hidden doors, so on and so forth. Everybody had their unique abilities that contributed to the team as a whole. And hopefully, at work, you can find a way to also be the unique hero on your team. So I'd be asking in the interview, what unique abilities do you hope I would bring to the team in this job? What are you looking for that you don't have on your team right now? And how can I serve in the team in that way? Make sense? Any questions on that so far? Good. So let's talk about challenge. Let's talk about mastery. Let's talk about building your skills. As a game designer, one of the things we really focused a lot on was coming up with balancing the level of challenge so people always felt like they were being challenged and getting better at the game. So the Jordan and Bird going one-on-one, this is one that was published when I was working in electronic arts way back when. And we thought about the idea, the thought process of if I wanted to become a really good basketball player, would I practice against a 5-year-old child? I'd probably get really good at winning against a 5-year-old. But would that really develop my skills? Probably not. How about Michael Jordan? I think about 10 minutes of playing against Michael Jordan would discourage me from ever trying to play basketball again. I would get beaten so badly that I would go, okay, never mind. I'm never going to get that good. But let's instead give you a set of opponents, each one of which is slightly better than you are at the time. And that's the way that we focused the challenge ladder in any game, is to give you challenges that were slightly ahead of where you were capable of at the time. So you had to learn, so you had to grow, so you had to step up to the challenge. And then once you mastered that challenge, then we give you a new set of challenges. So mastery comes from facing challenges just slightly better than you are and devising ways to overcome them. And that's part of the satisfaction of games. So in the job interview, find out what forms of professional development are available so I can continue building my skills. How are you going to support me in continuing to grow and improve my level of mastery in this area? Okay, next topic, risk taking. And I know a lot of companies say we encourage risk, we encourage innovation. And then employees are still nonetheless terrified of making any kind of mistakes for fear of being fired for them. So you got to make sure that they are walking the walk and not just talking the talk. So instead of just encouraging risk taking, I say they ought to celebrate failure. They ought to celebrate failure. Anyone who doesn't make mistakes isn't trying hard enough. That quote confused me at first, but it made me recognize that you can't innovate without making mistakes. This picture here on the screen, the first Penguin Award, comes from, I don't know if anybody ever saw The Last Lecture. It was one of the very, very first viral videos, and it was created by a Carnegie Mellon professor of computer science who gave an amazingly motivating talk. But one of the things he talked about in there was how he gave out an award at the end of each semester to the student group whose project failed in the most ambitiously, creatively spectacular fashion. He rewarded failure if it was the result of an ambitious attempt at innovation and creativity. And I don't think any company is really going to be successful unless they can take that attitude. So in an interview, I'd be asking these questions. How well does your company support innovation? And what was the last failed attempt at a new idea? And what happened afterwards? And find out if they actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk about we believe in innovation. So hopefully they learned from their mistakes. I used to work with Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of Electronic Arts, and he came from several years working at Apple in the early days. And I don't know if many people remember, there was a computer that Apple released called the Lisa. The Lisa was a prototype. It came out in between the Apple II and the Macintosh, and it failed utterly, totally failed. But the Lisa used a mouse. The Lisa used the first windowing interfaces. The Lisa did a lot of things that they later improved upon, learned from, and got right in doing the Macintosh. So the Macintosh would not have been the Macintosh if they had not failed the way they did with the Lisa. You know your Apple history, named after Steve Jobs' daughter. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about measurement. We're going to talk about scoring because no game feels like a game unless somebody's keeping score. And many times organizations give you feedback once a year in your annual performance review. So the annual performance review, you're wondering what your rating is. I haven't told you all year long. And now it's time to tell you all the things that you've done wrong. Anybody else ever feel that way about the annual performance reviews that you get on your job? Hate that. One of the first things I got to do when I started my new job at Foundation Communities was do a workshop on how to do better performance management than the annual performance review for our managers. But oh, thank you, Shannon, for putting up my LinkedIn connection. And anybody who wishes to connect with me, feel free to send me an invite. Just send me a note that says, yeah, I saw you at the job club. Anyway, back to scorekeeping. So, most common measurement that people have in most workplaces is that people often mistake time in your chair on the job as productivity and as effectiveness and as success. People are always bragging in a whining way about how many long hours I had to put into my job this week. And we get this whole sort of macho of how overloaded my plate is with so much stuff, can hardly keep up. Give me a break. There's better ways to measure how you're doing on your job. So we got to come up with some better ones. So again, going back to Randy Pausch, who was one of my heroes in that last lecture, and when he taught his courses in computer science and had his students all do team projects together. At the end of each of the projects, he would poll people on the team about their team members to measure how hard did each of your team members work on the project, how creative were their contributions, how easy were they to work with. If you get one person's opinion on it, it's just an opinion. If over the semester you get 20 opinions and 20 measurements on those measures, you have data. You've got something interesting to keep score on how good you are at your job right there. Let me ask you guys this question. Who uses a fitness tracker? Just type in yes or something under the chat. Let me know who's got an Apple Watch, something that tracks how many steps you take. How many people use any of those devices? Alexander says here. Brett says yes. Okay. Catherine says, yes, I track my steps. Okay. Well, Catherine, since you stepped forward and said so, let me ask you a question if you can turn on your mic. Do you find just wearing one of those trackers to be motivating?
Yes, I do. Because
Just using a fitness tracker?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because if I don't get a certain number of steps by the afternoon, I figure I need to do a few more before I go to bed.
Okay. So you're using it to track the number of steps you get in before noon.
Mhm.
And if you meet that goal on there, does your watch give you a prize? Does it
No, it doesn't.
give you a cookie?
But I
And
get to check. I get to check.
right. It's it's a measurement that you've decided is meaningful to you,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That measurement is meaningful to you to accomplishing your goal. And um, what Dan Pink discovered when he was writing Drive is that a meaningful measurement is its own reward. Just having something that measures the progress you are making in whatever you're trying to accomplish gives you motivation. So you want to figure out what are the meaningful measurements in your work. And one of the things I do every time I present a training or a workshop for the employees that I work with is a little feedback form at the end. Did you learn anything? Did you find that it was well organized? Did you find that it was enjoyable? Did the instructor keep you engaged? So on and so forth. And after each one, I tally up my score. And last month, I got like a perfect 5.0 across the board on all of my evaluations. I'm going, yes, I rule. Not that my manager was paying that much attention, not that anybody was giving me a cash reward for it, but man, that just felt good to have that meaningful measurement that I managed to kind of pitch a no-hitter on that month's workshops. So you want measurements that are objective, that are frequent enough that you can measure your progress, that reflect mastery of the skill that you are taking pride in your work. Be measuring something that is mostly in your control and aligned with the goals of the organization, preferably balancing out a measurement of quality and a measurement of quantity against each other. And don't tie it to a specific reward, just the measurement itself to let people know works. So it helps to have several different measurements to know if you're really succeeding in your work. So again, add this one to your list of questions to ask in an interview. How is success measured in this role that you're interviewing for? And many companies are familiar with and use the term KPIs, key performance indicators. So a good mature company will have defined KPIs for their jobs as well. And hopefully, with those measurements comes effective feedback. If you're not meeting the goals, if you're not meeting the measure, you get some good feedback on how to improve. You've got a manager who might be a good coach for doing that. If you are doing well, then the progress itself is its own motivator. So Dan Pink says the biggest motivator by far is making progress. But I love the quote. One of my former colleagues in the game industry, George McDonald, once told me, he said, I could get players to happily spend all day chopping down trees with large fish if I just gave them the right feedback and rewards. And I thought about that for a second. I said, damn, you're right. Especially back when we were doing games and the technology and the graphics were just little dots moving around on the screen. And they were not very flashy, were not very detailed. But think about how many hours I've spent playing Pac-Man, which was just a little yellow blob moving around collecting dots on a screen. Got good feedback, good rewards, sort of, but people spent hours. It worked. And yeah, shiny badges. Somebody said, Estella, you said badge. Tell me, what kind of badges worked for you with you, Estella? Can you turn on your mic? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. What did
So,
you mean by badge? Tell me more about what badge you're
well,
talking
they have certain badges for, say like you've gone 200,000 steps in a year or something to that
about.
effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
'Cause I mean, you basically set up on a daily basis, like, oh, you want to do 6,000 steps, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. However, I've kind of missed the mark on that a lot lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at one point I did 10,000 steps in one day and I regret. I felt the pain of it, but I
Yeah.
felt good because one, when I did that, I was volunteering through the thing that they have during Thanksgiving at I guess it was the Palmer Event Center where families get fed turkey and all the fixings. So I was, running around like here's the plate, right?
Yeah.
Helping people. So it's
Yeah.
like double the rewards because
Hmm.
one, I got my steps in, and two, I volunteered for something that was very, you know, near and dear to my heart.
And
So
you were doing an extra purpose, an extra sense of purpose, an extra sense of mission attached to that
right.
accomplishment. Yeah, absolutely. Maria said so do stickers. Same basis, Maria? If Maria can.
I mean,
There you go. Yeah.
I
What's
think, well, let me put my camera on here.
okay.
I can
Hey,
see.
good to see you.
So I think, well, I don't know of any adult that doesn't like a sticker. I mean, when I go vote, I want to make sure I get my I voted sticker, and I feel very sad if there are no more. I'm like, darn, I didn't get my sticker. And it's just a little sticker that says I voted.
You're right. I got mine. I voted
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
so, like, I've noticed even just as adults, if you give a prize of a sticker or something like that, stickers make people happy from little kids to adults. So,
Yep. The important part, as we're kind of alluding to with the badges, with the stickers and so on, is that there's nothing intrinsically rewarding about a sticker or a badge unless you have attached a meaning to the accomplishment. So if you feel like you've done something to actually earn that sticker, if I'm just walking down the street and I slap a sticker on your chest, well, for starters, I might get HR on me and so on. That would probably be a bad thing. Anyway, but if I just slapped a sticker on you, you'd probably take offense because the sticker doesn't mean anything and you didn't do anything to earn that sticker. But here we've got examples. Boy Scouts, how many hours do those badges represent? How many hours of work? Similarly, martial arts, whatever belt you've earned represents a lot of work. And what I have in the middle there is something that I still have to this day, 40-ish years later, was a little plastic. I mean, it was just cheap plastic star performer badge that we used to give out on the Friday afternoon happy hours at Electronic Arts, and managers would nominate, or somebody would nominate you for a star performer award. And they meant something. Yeah. So if you can attach meaning to something that is a token, a representation of something you've accomplished, that is inherently motivating as well. So organizationally, there are other things: performance and progress tracking displays, award certificates, team recognitions, uh, sending a email to a higher up about what you did, thank you cards, gift baskets, giving people time off, giving people schedule flexibility, a lot of different ways to reward and show appreciation. And you really want to ask about the company besides monetarily. You're not asking just because you want to make extra money, but you want to know, how do you recognize and reward employees? One of the things I really loved doing at my previous job, I was working at a place called Texas Health Action, lovely nonprofit. And we did a Heart of Texas Health Action, Heart of THA award every quarter. Any employee could nominate any other employee. And every quarter we gave out 3 of those awards. And the person who won the award got a day off, 8 hours of PTO. They got a little certificate that included the verbiage of the nomination. And they got a $50 gift card that they could use for whatever they wanted to, but I usually encourage them, go celebrate, go have a nice dinner out with your partner, your spouse, whoever on that front. And I really, really loved every quarter when we did those awards. It was great recognition for people. And it was not expensive. We were not giving away thousands of dollars. We were giving them about $50 gift cards. So ask the organization, how do you recognize, how do you reward your employees? Oftentimes, the best ones are the ones that are totally unexpected, ones that come out as a total surprise. If your organization does something or your manager does something that is just an unexpected bit of appreciation. And one of my favorite examples, I was working years ago for the Workforce Commission, and we had a conference that needed somebody to step in at the last minute to kind of help do some logistics and background support and so on. And so I got asked to drop whatever I was doing that day and help out with the conference, and so did my colleague Linnell. And I didn't think too much about it. It just was kind of part and parcel of the job. And then about a week later, I got a call from the front desk saying, "Mr. Johannigman, there's a package at the front desk here for you." I said, "Oh, okay, package at the front desk. What could that be?" And I opened it up, and as you can see in the picture, there was a note in there that said, "Linnell and Jeff, I so appreciate y'all stepping in with a moment's notice, working 2 days at the forum. Share these treats as you see fit." Now, anybody recognize that box? Anybody recognize the contents?
Yes, treats.
Tiff's treats. You're where are you now, Kathy?
Indianapolis. I'm so far away from Tiff's treats, but
What
I've still
what
got
does
them on
Indianapolis not
speaker.
have? I'm so sorry. Oh dear. Yeah, no, there's no Tiff's treats up in Indianapolis. I'm so
I
sorry.
can't bear to get them out of my directory.
And by the time that they get shipped up to you, they will no longer be warm and soft the way Tiff's treats need to be eaten.
And your health tracker probably has something to say about that.
Yeah, that's true. It defeats the purpose of it, all the steps you did on the health track. I don't care. They were that good.
What about
So
those edible arrangements?
yeah,
That's pretty much everywhere.
those are okay. Yeah, but there's
Not
something
warm
unique.
cookies.
There's
Sorry.
something unique about Tiff's treats. I'm sorry. If you haven't had Tiff's treats, you got to have Tiff's treats. But
Oh, I've had it.
okay, good. So
Sorry.
you'll notice in the note, Krista said, share these treats as you see fit. Now, because Linnell's name was on the note, I felt obligated to let Linnell have a couple of the cookies. But I think that's where the sharing stopped. I did not see fit to let anybody else have those cookies. It was Linnell and me, and that was it. But it was so motivating to feel like my manager appreciated me to do this unexpected surprise little nod of thanks in doing so. It really meant a lot in my work. So, going to wrap things up at this point. A little final thought from James Michener. And then we can open things up for a little discussion, a little questions if you want to. But he said, the master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he's working or playing. To him, he's always doing both. And I feel delighted that I was invited to play with you guys today. This is something that I absolutely enjoy. It is something I have a lot of fun with. And I get to see on my screen a couple of my favorite people in the world, Kathy and Catherine there as well. And Shannon, I don't see you on my screen at the moment, but I really appreciate you bringing me back to talk about this stuff. If anybody else wants to, we're going to wrap things up with this final thought. How do you turn work into play? It's just a series of interesting choices. So if you want to follow up with me, I think Shannon already put my LinkedIn profile on there. And there's my contact information, phone number. Dial that number right now. You reach me if you want. Please don't interrupt for everybody else. But I appreciate having you guys out here for this. So I'll stop the share for now.
Thank you, Jeff. It was amazing. We now want to go play.
Yay. I want everybody to be able to have fun. Because that's fulfilling. That's the best kind of work you can do. All right.
Anybody else have a comment, or you want to share a company that you worked for that was successful in making work
Oh, that's a good
as
question.
fun?
Yeah. Anybody else have good examples of places where they found the company embraced fun? Melissa?
It's not specifically about embracing fun, but just a comment. I was a public servant for my career, and people probably hear a lot of federal workers talk about like they love what they do because of the mission. Like we are very mission oriented, and I've worked really tough situations, crises around the world, and but you get through it because I love the people I work with, and I believed in the mission and the importance of like foreign policy, of diplomacy, of having allies. So being mission driven, I'm finding it in the job search. I'm trying to remind myself that my next job doesn't, it's a stepping stone. It doesn't always have to be like my next forever job. But when I'm not as inspired when I see postings and I think about what is the mission of this organization? Do I feel inspired to work for this organization? I'm finding that, I think, tough, trying to pivot to private sector. And when you were talking about mission, I was just wondering if you had any advice about that, or how you find that purpose in really any job, right? Like,
I am so with you on that because now that I'm working in a nonprofit organization that does really fine work that I'm very proud to be serving, I don't know if I can go back to working for like a Fortune 500 company, to be honest. But any economist will tell you that every job anybody does serves somebody's need. Somebody has a need for a good car, so GM exists. Somebody has a need for a good way to manage information, so IBM exists. And in some ways, you don't have to work for a nonprofit to find a purpose that you can connect to because of the product that you believe in. One of the things I found interesting, I did work for GM once upon a time, and a lot of the people I worked with were total gearheads, total gearheads. And they were so proud of, they would have a cube that had a big window that looked on the parking lot so that they could point to, there's my car right down there. Isn't that a cool Cadillac? Isn't that a cool, Corvette, whatever, on there? But they just loved everything about cars and automobiles and manufacturing and everything else. So they found that sense of mission for a large Fortune, I don't know, GM was probably in the Fortune 50 through most of its lifespan. So you don't have to work for a nonprofit or in the public sector, but for many of us, it's a really good fit. And I think a lot of people don't consider that as well as they should, because they just assume that everybody who works for a nonprofit is working for pennies. And nonprofits can pay a reasonable amount. I can feed a family and I can make my living off of what a nonprofit pays me. So, and
government
it is
money.
Hmm?
No one works
Government.
for government for money.
Yeah, nobody works for the government for money. And similarly, you are serving a public good. When I worked for the Workforce Commission, I found that to be very meaningful as well. Wendy, you got your hand up? Go ahead. Unmute. Wendy, you are muted. You are being very passionate, but not hearing you. You're still muted. There we go.
And so it's not letting me. I've had trouble with this all day.
Oh dear.
I'm not pushing anything. Okay.
Okay.
My
I
thing's
can
up
hear you
there.
now.
It should be good. Is it going?
I can hear you.
Because I've had the video on the whole time. It just now showed me. So, Mrs. Lamford, I've had my video on. It's just kind of been wonky. Thank you. I love your presentation. I'm a teacher trying to switch out, and I've had a lot of problems. So hopefully I can connect with you, because I love reaching the kids, and I do, but I always have my own program, and it doesn't really coincide in districts and stuff. That's a whole other story. But I like you were saying, with the passion, it's like you need to feel something. And like Melissa was saying, when I try to look on jobs, I'm like, I can't see myself. I see myself more nonprofit lens, and I tried for a year, and I've gone more into animals. But maybe I can connect with you. All those things you said I resonate with, and great steps.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I would say, as a career coach, there's two different careers that I've worked with an awful lot of groups of people who have wanted to pivot out of what they were doing. Number one of which was lawyers. Number two of which is K-12 school teachers.
Okay.
So something about those two occupations people go into with a lot of idealism and a lot of dreams, and they discover that the reality just isn't living up to what they hoped it would be. But I love teachers because teachers have so many transferable skills. Teachers have so many things they can do. It's just an issue of figuring out which way you want to go, and then which skills that you used as a teacher you can apply to this new direction. So I see Catherine has a hand and Maria has a hand, but I think, Catherine, you raised yours first.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to tell a story about teachers. I had a client who was a teacher and felt she needed to make more money, and she was a little bit burned out. And she went to work at Dell. And this is quite a few years ago, when computers were just making their ways to schools. And Dell put her into the division that was selling computers to schools. And it really gave her a lot of satisfaction because she was offering special deals, to school systems and helping them get tooled up. So sometimes, even a company that you think, well, it's all about selling and profit, can have a really important mission to it too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find mission in most jobs. It's a question of whether that mission is one that you can personally connect to on there. And it makes all the difference in the world. Maria, you still got your hand up?
Yes. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for this presentation, because I feel like in my journey of life and adventure, I've learned how to work really, really hard, and bought into the play hard, work hard thing where I'm like, no, that's not really for me because I don't really even know how to play, so much less play hard. So I'm really glad that that's kind of a myth, to hear that that's kind of, if there's a word, mythius,
Yeah.
mythological, it's in the myth box, or
Yeah,
area.
it's a myth. Yeah.
Yeah. So, excuse me. I think for me, one of my biggest takeaways from your presentation was learning the opposite of play is depression.
Yeah.
For me, that was really like this little light bulb went on where I'm like, finally, I understand this because I've done a lot of my own work and growth work and mindset and etc. And it is really great to hear that, because
Mhm.
it's good to know that if I'm feeling a little down, I just need to go play. Go
Yeah.
find. It's not even the self-care, although self-care is important too. But it's like, yeah, I have to figure out play. And this is something I've been noodling on for some time because life is short. Um, and so yeah, just that whole idea, that whole concept of that. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad that it helped give you some interesting new insights. Thank you. You just made my day. All right. I think we are running close to 11:30 at this point in time. Anybody else have a thought to share, an example of fun they found in their work, meaning, purpose, mission, challenge?
Hey,
I'm
Jeff,
surprised we haven't had
oh,
more people with fun work stories. And I'm sorry I interrupted somebody. Did somebody have such a thing?
well, I was actually going to ask Jeff if you know where to find that Jordan versus Bird game, because it wasn't too long ago where I was wondering, I was telling my kids about it,
Yeah.
and there's nowhere to find it. And I figured they must have some way to
Oh,
emulate it online.
I know that there exist some places that have taken old vintage software and
Right,
made copies run on emulators that still let you play an old game on a new PC. I'm not in that realm. I don't play, to be honest, since I left the
right.
game industry, I'm kind of like an ex-smoker, a reformed alcoholic. I don't play any computer games or video games anymore. I've got a ton of board games, but I don't really touch much of the computer games anymore. So
Do you
I know
still
they're
have
out
your
there though.
do you still have
Hmm?
your meetup group, Gamers, Geeks, and something?
The Austin Geeks and Gamers. The group still
Awesome.
exists. I don't run it anymore. Um, Pandemic just wreaked havoc on meetups.
Mm-hmm.
Meetup.com was very, very thriving in 2017, 18, 19, into the early part of 2020. And then you just can't meet up during the pandemic. And now some are finally coming back out of that and getting back to the health that they were. But other people are running that particular group now.
All right. Well, this was
Wait,
great.
Estelle has a hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I'll try to make this quick. When I was working at Charles Schwab, there were several employee resource groups that I was part of, like this Soul for Schwab Organization for Latinos, and then
Hmm.
um, women in networking and what have you, and I participated in those. But one of my favorite times during the year was when we had Halloween for the employee kids, where it was Trail of Treats, and the kids would dress up and they'd have all sorts of games. It let my inner child come out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
So
I do miss that.
were you dressing up for that yourself, or were you just facilitating
Um,
with the kids?
One year I did dress up as Dia de los Muertos, and
Yeah.
everybody was surrounding me wanting to take pictures as if I were a celebrity, and I only managed to scare one child.
Aw.
Not intentionally, because I had the candy skull mask
Yeah.
on. And
Yeah.
so I was doing a game and she came up and she was like, "Oh my God." But everybody just wanted to take a picture of me and or with me. And I felt like, I was on the red carpet. And
Nice.
yeah, it just brought back lots of good times and memories.
I was sharing earlier this morning, by the way. Let me go back to share screen a second on here. Sharing earlier this morning with Kathy and Shannon about my costume work. And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, there you
No.
go. So this last Halloween, my partner Christine and I, we did Frankenstein and the Bride. This was at a costume contest at one of the events we went to. We went to in October. We went out 6 different times in costume to different shows and events that had costume contests, and we went 6 for 6 in winning prizes there.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was way fun to do.
Which one are you?
Hmm?
Which one are you?
I'm not the pretty and the busty one. I'll tell you that much. You can figure it out from there.
Wow.
Yeah. By the way, you may notice those are 4-inch platform boots.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
You ever loan those
I
out?
really enjoyed wearing them, except for the one time at that show at Kick Butt, I tripped and fell and just totally wrecked my ankle.
Oof.
For weeks, it was in pain. But yeah,
I have a good story about fun in the workplace.
yeah.
I used to tell this as about a personality of a company, and I think the personality of a company filters down from whoever is in the C-suite. And um, when AMD and Intel started, um, and I can't remember did they work for Philips Electronics? I can't remember um, Andy Grove and Jerry Sanders. But
Yeah.
anyway, it was a big electronics firm like Emerson or Philips. And so they left that company and everybody was a gazillionaire. And Andy Grove, an engineer, started Intel. And Jerry
Mhm.
Sanders, who was in marketing, which is a very different, generally personality type.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jerry Sanders is in marketing and he starts AMD. And they're both making computer chips and they have a very different personality, corporate personality. And Andy Grove, electronics, engineering, uh, not much fun, not very joyful. Made a really high quality chip, but IBM did not want a monopoly. So
Mhm.
IBM helped AMD, shared some technology with them, helped them become competitive. But they still, when I first moved back to Austin, they were in legal battles against each other for uh, stealing ideas and patents and all that stuff. And and one side would win, one company would win, and then the other one would challenge them again in court, and then they'd win, and then the other one would challenge it in court. So AMD had just won a legal battle, and they were coming out ahead. And Raiders of the Lost Tomb had just come out in the movie theaters, and there was, I think I still have it in my storage unit. There, they put these posters all over AMD that showed Jerry Sanders as Indiana Jones and with a trophy wife girlfriend under his arm, and Andy Grove was the Nazi evil guy, and all of the legal team of Intel was pictured as the henchman of the legal guy. But anyway, and it said in theatrical headline stuff, it said
I
the
got to share
fight
when I left the Workforce
continues or
Commission.
something like that.
You can see that clearly from
Oh
there.
yeah, we can see it.
So they
On
stuck
to
my
his next
face.
adventure. So that was when you left
That was when I
ACC?
left the Workforce Commission, but
Oh,
they
the
made a little
Workforce
poster for
Commission.
me, congratulating me. So the Indiana Jones theme, I still have this from back then. But yes, that's
So
fun.
are
That's
you
so much
telling
fun.
me that somebody at Workforce Solutions created that for you?
Part of our what we call the Human Dynamics Training Team at TWC. So yeah,
Wow. I had
technically
no
not Workforce
idea.
Solutions. I don't know if you knew how that, they were structured separately from TWC, but yeah. But the Human Dynamics Training Team back then at the Workforce.
But that's the sort of thing that can add a whole bunch of fun
Oh yeah.
spice to and satirical music and fun. GSD&M, the advertising company, always had
Yeah.
bands come in on Friday, I think. They
Mhm.
had like happy hour in the company and had music and socialization so the people that work there
Yeah.
could connect in a
When I
different way.
worked for EA, we had a Friday afternoon happy hour. When I worked for Tivoli Systems, we had our Friday afternoon happy hour. And I would argue that more work actually got done during that hour because people bumped into each other and go, "Oh, I've been meaning to talk to you all week about this. Let's take care of this one little detail, and then we can get back to drinking beer together." So yeah, that really facilitated a lot of productive work getting done. Those organizations, they were not just doing it so people could get drunk at the end of the week.